This is Frank Boring from the Michigan Military Museum, and this is an interview with Beth Sefton on October the 1st, 2003. Beth, let's begin with the most basic of things. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Sioux City, Iowa, and May 30th, 1921. So I'm now 82 years old.
And what was your hometown like? What was Sioux City like during that time?
Sioux City was a typical Midwestern, all-white town, and so my family was a little bit of an oddity because my father was Chinese, and my mother was English and German, and therefore we were like a black would be to the South in those years. Except that I think it was more noticeable because of the fact that we were conscious of it.
Where did you go to school? First off, not high school or anything, but where did you first go to school?
I first went to school at Irving School. It was just about 5 blocks from my house, and it was a typical public school. My teachers were wonderful, and I had lots of friends.
So you didn't experience any real problem in the fact that your father was Chinese at this point?
No, I think a lot of the prejudice was in family stuff, at least until I got into high school. So.
Well, tell us about what was your high school experience like?
Well, the only problems I had with prejudice there was the fact that some of the mothers were not happy with the fact that their sons liked me. In fact, one mother kept her son out of school a half a year so that he would not graduate with us. So.
Did you actually personally feel any kind of animosity, or did you actually feel like there was some reason why you were different than the other kids?
No, not with the rest of the population. So, in fact, I think we are. Both my brother and I were very intelligent, smart kids, and so if anything, we got preferential treatment.
Did your parents ever sit you down at any time that you can remember and say that people out there might treat you differently?
I think my mother was the cause of that. So.
Because it's very strange to say this, but I'm half Russian, and when I first came to America as a child, of course the Cold War was going on. My mother sat me down and made sure to say, don't ever tell anybody you're Russian, because there might be problems. With that, so I kind of relate to what you're saying. In high school, then, you graduated from high school. Did you have any idea of what you wanted to do after high school?
Well, this was the middle of the Depression, and our money was limited, so it was and the careers for women were limited also. So it was either a matter of college or nursing, and nursing was much more reasonable and much more accessible. So I chose nursing.
I think a lot of people today wouldn't quite understand, because they don't understand really what a depression is. And in a depression, your options are so limited in terms of what you can do. How did nursing cost anything, or did you get a scholarship, or how did you actually get the chance to become a nurse?
Well, my let's see, it was my brother's wife had a baby in St. Vincent's Hospital, and I was impressed with the hospital itself, and I know my brother had said to me, "Babe, you better decide what you want to do," and so I looked up the difference, and as far as cost, it was very reasonable because it was a school of nursing. They did not have colleges at the time that taught nursing, and so I had to pay, I think it was like $100 for uniforms and things like that, but most of it was that we worked for our like what would be tuition was where we worked. We worked in the hospital from the time that we were probies. We first went in 2 hours and then 4 hours, and so that we actually formed the staff of the hospital. And because in St. Vincent's there were no interns, we really had an excellent education, and we still managed to get all of the subjects in that we were taught by doctors and by nurses and by the Briarcliff College also. But it was a do-it-yourself more than the now. If you want to be a nurse, you have to go to college.
Well, two things. What's a probie?
A probie is a probationer, just a short name for a probationer when you start out.
Now, you had mentioned there was a college involved. Were you actually taking classes at any time during the day?
Yeah. Oh yes. We took classes in the day and in the evenings. So, beside our work, we also had 2 to 4 hours of classes along with it.
Are we picking up that sound? There's a blower going on. Okay, all right, good. So, what was this experience? I mean, did you enjoy this experience? I mean, what was the experience like of working as a probie, if you will?
Oh, you were not a probie long. It was about like a 3-month period, you see. But I loved nursing. I loved it from the very start, and I loved the people. I loved the work. I loved everything about it.
What kind of nursing were you doing at this time?
Oh, the kind of nursing that we did was the entire range of things. We did the wards and private patients, but every kind of disease that they deal with in the hospitals. What we did, we had gallbladders and appendixes and fractures and all those injuries, plus a lot of people that had age diseases. I can remember we had a ward of old men there that had some of the diseases you don't even see anymore, with these ascites, the big abdomens, and things that don't happen as much now.
I have a notice here of wonder the Beatrice, loving, watchful eye. What's
Oh,
that?
Sister Beatrice. She, I was, St. Vincent's was ran by the nuns, and Sister Beatrice was actually my first paying job outside of the hospital. We were in training for 3 years, and the nuns were very meticulous, and they watched you. All of the nuns did, but Sister Beatrice was my first operating room supervisor outside of the hospital.
In December of 1941, America was shocked at the attack on Pearl Harbor. Do you remember that day?
Oh, I remember the attack on Pearl Harbor because I was doing my public health nursing. You went through the entire phases: psychiatric nursing, public health nursing, surgeries, obstetrics, everything. But I was on one of my last rotations, and this was public health, and I was in the car with this public health nurse, and we heard it on the radio, and we were really shocked, and it's something that, just like the death of President Kennedy, that you will never forget when we realized we'd been attacked.
What was your immediate reaction to that? What I'm trying to get at is that you're a nurse, we're now at war. Was there any reaction in terms of some of the pilots that I've talked to in the past who said, I want to join up, I'm going to go and go fight? What was your reaction?
My reaction to whether I should join the service was I couldn't at the moment because I wasn't out of training. So my brother was already in the war. He had joined up ahead because that also was an out when we were in this depression, and you couldn't get jobs anywhere, and so he joined the service, and so he was up in Camp Grant, Illinois, and of course he said, "Don't join," and I wasn't really qualified yet because I didn't graduate until 1942, which was May of 1942, and then I felt that I needed to have a little outside experience outside of that hospital before I ever would think of that. However, the real crux of the matter is that the longer we were in the war, the more you felt the pressure of having to, wanting to join, wanting to be a part of it, and the need to be. We were tremendously busy at the hospital where I worked. We were on call every other day, and we just were very, very busy. And so they kept saying join, and so everyone that was a young nurse at our hospital was already thinking of joining. Two of the girls that I worked with became Navy nurses, and another one an Army nurse. So we were all on limited time in our jobs, it seemed like. And it was like they pointed a finger at you, "We want you," like that poster. And you really felt that you were obligated to, you wanted to really be part of it. Yeah, I think that World War II was probably the most patriotic of all wars, and certainly the most fervent, complete. The whole country was behind it, so that you just felt that you had to be part of it.
So in March of 1943, you were talking about like radios and news venues are clamoring. But at this point, they were clamoring for nurses, or at least that came to your attention. Is that right?
I felt like the radio announcements and the all of the news media was clamoring for nurses, and of course, like everything, like even now, they're always clamoring for nurses to join or so. But it was also an altruistic feeling of wanting to, not necessarily having to, but wanting to.
So, what did you do in reaction to that?
Well, in reaction to the feelings that I had and how the country was going, of course, I had to consider my mother, who didn't want me to join, of course, because there were only the two of us. But I really felt it was necessary, and so I was already a Red Cross nurse, because as we graduated from nursing school, we joined the Red Cross, and all of the nurses of that era went to the Army through the Red Cross. We were not considered Army nurses as much as we were Red Cross nurses. And so you had to have that backing before you were allowed to join the Army. And actually, we did not become part of the regular Army until a while after that I was in it, and I didn't even realize that. I thought I was an Army nurse from right at the beginning. But then about, I forget how many months in, then they had us sign something that made us really Army nurses and not just Red Cross nurses.
Well, for those people who do not have any background in this, why couldn't, American males could join the Navy or join the Army or join the Marines? Did you have an option, or was?
No, there was no option to join the services that way. In fact, it was considered separate. The nurses were not considered a part of the Army at the first, and thank God I didn't know that at the time, because I don't think any of us realized that we were not an integral part of the Army itself until afterwards. And then, of course, when the WACs and the WAVES, the Women's Auxiliary Corps and all of this came in afterwards, we were a little resentful because they got in so much easier than we did, with so much less training.
So you joined up, and the Army Nurse Corps. Where were you stationed, and what was your experience? What did you learn there?
Well, when I joined the service, my first station was Schick General Hospital in Clinton, Iowa, and it was a big general hospital. It had the famous neurosurgeons and it was. I found out later that it had not been established as long as I thought it had, but it was an entire campus and there were training units, medical units on the hill. All of them training to go overseas. But this general hospital did all types of surgery, and of course I was an operating room nurse, and so I was in on all of these new ideas and all the new metals that they were using, titanium and all of the stuff that was brand new. You must remember that at this time there was just the beginning of penicillin, and sulfa was just first being used. There were so many new innovations that were just beginning at this time.
Now, let me understand this. You're now at Schick General Hospital. You're training in these neurosurgical techniques, but you're in the military. Don't you have to go through basic training or anything like that?
We had basic training at Schick General Hospital. In fact, we had marches, we had calisthenics, we also had gas masks where we had to go through a tent and learn how to put the gas mask on, and we had I don't know what they had in it, but they did have some sort of gas that was very strong, and we really had a tremendous basic training.
Well, give us an idea of what a typical day would be like. I mean, when we've interviewed your husband, we've interviewed other vets that, they would get up in the morning, they'd have to do this, but you're a nurse. So what was your sort of a typical day like during this very first part of your training?
It's hard to remember exactly.
That's all right. That's
what a typical day was, but I don't remember whether we did it in different days that they took you out to do that, or whether it was part of a daily thing. But what we did is I know that we had surgeries all day long, and we had an 8-hour duty period. But there must have been time out when we would have these marches and these all of the training scheduled. But I just don't recall exactly how it was.
That's okay. In November of '43, you made a big decision that literally affected the rest of your life. Instead of staying in the safety of Schick, I understand you volunteered.
I volunteered to go overseas in November of '43. It was very tempting to want to stay in this absolutely wonderful surgery place, but I also felt that what I joined the Army for was to help the soldiers that were going to be in this fight, and so of course there it had to be overseas and not in the safety of the big general hospital here.
Now, your mom was not happy when you joined the Army to begin with, but she must have really wondered about this. What was your mom's reaction to your wanting to go overseas?
I think she felt after I joined the Army it was completely out of her hands. My mother was always concerned with the fact that we were in harm's way, but she knew that I was going to make my own decisions.
So once you volunteered for overseas duty, what happened next?
Well, after I volunteered for overseas duty, I was sent on a train to Camp Rucker, Alabama, and we were in long wooden barracks. There were about 30 people to a barracks, all in one room, and there were like two toilets at the end of the room where you could face each other almost. So there was much less privacy, and you learned more and more to be buddies with everybody and
Wayne, please.
and to
I think it's my wife, and if that's the problem.
Okay, all right.
He's got diabetes. Yeah, you could,
Yeah,
James.
why don't you, James? Good.
Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Onward to agenda item number 11.
Okay.
I've forgotten what we were talking
Yeah,
about.
me too.
Mother was,
I was going to Camp Rucker.
Right, okay, so you're Camp
Yeah,
Rucker
that's
now?
right.
Okay.
Oh,
No, I had a question though. This is in Alabama.
oh
okay?
yes, Camp Rucker, Alabama.
Was there any, we heard earlier on to your being half Chinese, did you experience any problem there about this, or was this just not even an issue?
There was no issue at all with my ancestry after I got in the Army. However, Camp Rucker, Alabama was in the deep South, and so I was shocked to find out how much there was still the separation of the two, the blacks and the whites in the South. I can remember feeling outraged that the blacks would step off of the pavement so that the whites could walk by, and there was still that black back of the bus where and being from the north, I was really outraged at the acceptance and the difference it was in the South. However, it all seemed to be done quite amiably between both races, and there was not the animosity that it would have engendered up north, but it was very apparent. And we went through Montgomery, Alabama, and where they still had the flags of the South up, and you would have thought Jefferson won the war. So.
Now, once you went through your training there at Camp Rucker, what was your next assignment?
Actually, at Camp Rucker, we didn't have any training. What we did is we gathered our equipment and our. I can remember that we had our barracks bags laid out, and our bedrolls and all our canteens, and we were supplied with everything that we needed. And we also met the unit that we were going to go overseas with. That was the 313th Station Hospital. So we did meet the officers there and learn a little more about the bonding together of a unit at this time.
You just mentioned officers. Did you have a rank at this time?
Oh, I was brought into the Army as a second lieutenant, and there I stayed for a long, long time because of the fact that when we did get overseas, our promotions were frozen. But I think most all of the nurses that came into the service came in as second lieutenants, and probably the older ones, the ones that were in charge of you, were made captain, and the ones that were or first lieutenants. Those were the ones that did the paperwork and kept the nurses in line. So.
So from there, where did you move on to? Because now you're about to go overseas. Where did you go overseas, and how did you get there?
We were sent from Camp Rucker, Alabama, to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, and from there we were sent overseas. We had our final inspections and our foot lockers and were banded, and everything was stenciled, and then we boarded the quite a large ship, and it was called the Brazil. It was. I was seasick, always seasick. I couldn't believe that I could get seasick because I was always so healthy and so strong, but ships are not my forte. So I spent my whole 10 days going overseas on the top deck, because I found out that I was perfectly all right as long as I was out in that fresh air, but perfectly terrible, like a leaden head, when I was down where I could hear the machinery and smell the oil that came from the ships.
So I take it this was not a luxury liner you went over on.
Well, I think all ships are terrible. I don't think there's any luxury liner that could ever get me to get on a ship that I did not have to be on.
So, thank goodness you finally arrived, and where did you arrive?
We arrived, we went in convoy across the, and they had a smoking lamp that they would put out when the skies got gray and dark, and you could see the whole mass of ships that were in this convoy, and we zigzagged a little bit. And of course, I thought all this was not really necessary, but I guess it was at the time. I just didn't realize the dangers. But we landed in Scotland, and that was, I think, in December of 1943, somewhere along there.
Okay, let's hold off just for a moment here. You're getting real close to touching your microphone.
Oh,
So
sorry.
be careful of that. And can you check on, Wayne, you all right? Okay.
For pause, come back in.
Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, good. All right. So, this is the first time you've arrived in a foreign country, even though it's an English-speaking country. What was your first reaction to, I mean, in other words, you get there, and was this the first time you met Scottish people or British people, or?
We arrived in Scotland, I think, in the middle of the night. So, and we were in Class A uniforms, which means that we had short skirts, fairly short for that time, and not much protection, so we were freezing. And we got on a train there and met no Scottish people, and it was dark, so we'd peer out the window to see what kind of what we could see, because of course loved the idea of being in a foreign country and wanted to see and do and experience everything that there was to experience. So we got on this train and tried to sleep, and went all the way down, all the way from the top of Scotland clear down to the bottom of England, which was we landed in North Devon is what we did. But this was a long trip. I can remember the one time that we did stop. They had coffee with cream in it. I'd never drank coffee in my life before, but it was nice and hot. So that was my first experience drinking coffee. And so we stayed on this cold train clear down to Devon. And it was rainy in Devon too. But England will always be my first love, because I spent 15 months there, and it was a beautiful country and lovely people. The most wonderful thing that I think I learned about the English was their resilience, their ability to make do with little. When they had the large buses, and they were very patient in queuing up for them. But the thing that I treasured most was the fact that even the old people rode bicycles to save the gas. So there was a lot of bicycle riding.
So what were you doing during these 15 months?
I was at the 313th Station Hospital, and we were in Barnstable, North Devon, England. That's just almost as far south as you can get. And it was beautiful country. But we set up our hospital unit there. We were quartered at first in a manor house in Fremington, and we we learned all of the things about English living, that they had no central heating, and we had to learn to start our own fires, and
I think people that may not realize what a manor house is. This is a huge, almost castle-like structure with lots of rooms, so that would be perfect for housing a whole group of people.
Well, the manor house only housed about the nurses first, and then the officers afterwards, and it was a huge, lovely house. It had a ballroom, and which we turned into our dining room, and it had tremendous. Actually, one of the things that I remember most was the tub that they had there, and it was a built-in, and it was so deep that it was amazing. But it was a beautiful place with polished wood. There might have even been a ghost there sometime. But we had in the one large room where some of our nurses were, they had put 8 beds in this one room, 8 cots where we slept on cots, and then of course at that time the officers and the enlisted person were out in the what they called Nissen huts, which were sort of prefabricated huts that were long, and I don't know
Like
how
a
they'd been
barracks,
made.
maybe?
Yeah, kind of like a barracks.
Okay.
So, and they had pot-bellied stoves in them. These were the ones that eventually the nurses got these, and we had to keep our fuel going, and we only had so much fuel.
Well, that leads to another question. The war is going on. Did you have any experience? I mean, I know that they weren't bombing you, but did you have any experience with perhaps the deprivations of the war, or any experience that the war was going on?
There were, we had many experiences about the deprivation that was going on in England, because we were not allowed to have any milk or any eggs or any things that would be taking away from the British population. In fact, I learned to drink powdered milk because I loved milk, and powdered eggs. Actually, the United States Army, I think, ate quite well, and so we all had bicycles too. We bought them so that we could travel without using extra gas. And then, of course, at that time we set up our operating room and our different wards, and the hospital things that we did were for our own unit, or once in a while we had the airplanes that flew over from the RAF and that's the Royal Canadian Air Force, and they had an airfield that was directly across the river from where our unit was stationed, and I know that there were several times when they had crashes, and they were brought in to our surgery, and we took care of them.
So at this point, you're not treating war, direct war casualties. You're dealing with accidents, and you're dealing with the general kind of I guess. Who were you treating, and what were you treating at this time, besides the RAF and the Canadians you're talking about?
Well, as we were treating mostly our own personnel, and living in expectation of what was to come, rather than treating anybody. We were set up and ready, but not really functioning as a war unit. Actually, it was before we had D-Day, and so although I didn't realize, I figure I was in the war because I was over there, but I didn't realize that our Americans were not yet in the war, and I couldn't understand why we were sort of stagnated and not doing what I thought I'd been sent over for.
Did you have any opportunity to either go into London or any of those areas that the war actually could be viewed, could be seen?
I did go many places while in England. London was one of them. That was one of the really scary times because they were having the buzz bombs that came over. These were the unmanned bombs that Hitler sent over, and you could hear the noise from them, and when the noise stopped, then you had to look out because that's when the bomb was going to drop.
Well, why were you in London?
I went up on a pass to see one of my nurse friends, and I was so frightened when there was all these air raid sirens, and it got so black out, and I didn't know where I was, and we were going in the subway, and when I got off, and they said some British said, "Oh yes, this hospital is right in the next block," and so I went up to the hospital, and I asked not for the person that I was coming to see, but somebody that had been back in my unit, because I was really frightened, and my nurse friend who was based in London was so calm and so matter of fact, and everybody was going down into the subways to escape the bomb scare. But she stayed up there, and we watched through the window and saw all these flares, and it was lit up, and you could see the fires and everything, and I know afterwards, when I was trying to get back to go back to my own station, I can remember there were all these hoses that were strung across, and the British people, not just the men but the women, were all working industriously to put out the fires, and it was a real revelation of how efficient these British were. So I was impressed. But I was glad I was not based in London.
I can imagine it also as a real wake-up in terms of the devastation of war and the kind of enemy you were up against.
You really realized how devastating it was, because there was also all the rubble and the buildings that were downed, and the people that were injured. It brought war very, very close.
So once you made it back to your base, where did you go from there?
I think it was about June of 40. I can't really remember when.
Don't worry, that's
But
okay.
we were not functioning efficiently as a unit, and so the nurses were sent out on temporary duty to other hospitals. So I was sent up to Exeter and Taunton, to, I think it was 101st General Hospital, and I always felt a little like if I was the outcast, not really belonging, because you learn to identify so completely with your own personnel and your own unit, and so to be sent to a strange place, it was hard to adapt to different areas. But we were sent to this big general hospital, and I can remember living in another, presumably manor house or something, in the attic. And I can't even remember what we did there. But
This isn't where you were doing similar MASH type of...
no, this was earlier on, and that was when we were in.
Malvern?
But when I was in this area where we were transferred, then instead of being on temporary duty anymore, we were assigned to another unit. This one was the 123rd Station Hospital, and this was when we were sent up to Malvern, England. That's probably in the north of England, and they had the 50, I think it was the 55th or 53rd General Hospital there, and there is where I was in the surgeries, where they did 2 surgeries. They had it. It was a standing. It was not tents. It was a standing unit, but they had actually 2 surgeries going on at the same time, and I participated in that area, and it was almost like what you see on the MASH unit that Alden Alda portrays there. I did not like the original MASH because I thought it was not only exaggerated, that it was gross almost, but
Right, so from there, I understand you went to France.
from Malvern we were sent over to Wales, and there we met a different set of officers, and went from there to France. So we arrived in France, I think about in January or February of 45, I think.
Well, this must have been exciting. I mean, now you're going from England, now you're going to another foreign country. And France, of course, has a lot of mystique and romance about it. What was your reaction to arriving in France? And where did you stay?
I arrived in France, I think at Le Havre, and then we stayed at a monastery, I think it was, that had I know it had the chapel, and we stayed so that we could go to Mass every morning if we wanted to.
So you were in the monastery. There's a chateau there as well. That
It was, I guess it was a chateau, but it had that chapel at the side, and we were all in a long wooden area or so with canvas cots, and we managed to press our uniforms by putting them between the cot and our bedroll, so that's how we pressed our clothes, and it was a place where we I know we had our mess kits with the great big tubs that were out there, and we wore fatigues all the time. That was a blessing because there was mud everywhere, and we got to know the French people. In fact, I tried to learn a little bit of French. I never was very good at it, though.
So you're, let's say, for example, you're now going out to eat. Of course, you've got candlelight dinner settings with plates and silverware. And
Huh? We did not have, although the mystique of France was there, we were not given the candlelight dinners and things. What we did see was the long French bread that they had, but they didn't even put it in wrappers. They carried it on the street just as is, with no wrappers or anything, and the French. The French family that I learned about was when I went on a temporary duty to Dieppe, and they had an evacuation, a field hospital there, and this French 16-year-old boy came up and he says, "Oh, don't step off the sidewalk," he says, "because there are bombs and mines on the side, so you have to stay on the walks." So he offered to take me up to see a castle that was really just the ruins of a castle that was there. And then he invited me home to see his mother, and although she couldn't speak English and I can't speak French, we managed to connect. with sign language and smiles and whatever. And I have kept him as a friend ever since, and I still correspond with him. And his mother has since died, but we did go back in 1978 and visited her, and she had the caduceus emblem that I'd sent her, and she gave me a little pair of earrings that I don't wear earrings, but anyhow, it just was a beautiful friendship, and he was a diplomat in the European Common Market. In fact, when we went back to visit, we ended up having to go through security to get to where he was. He'd also been a French paratrooper,